Oh yes, oh yes. This honorable special session of Superior Court for the County of Sampson is now open and sitting for the dispatch of its business. God save the state and this honorable court. The Honorable Superior Court Judge Charles H. Henry presiding. You may be seated.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This special session of Sampson County Superior Court was convened to recognize and honor the life and service of Superior Court Judge W. Douglas Parsons. I consider it my honor to have this privilege to preside over this special session of court. To provide to us the invocation at this time, I'll recognize Sampson County Attorney Roscoe M. Holland, Jr. Ross, thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome. Would you please join me for the invocation? Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here today to honor and commemorate that which is honorable, a man who devoted his professional career to investing in his community by using his many gifts and talents to better the lives of countless individuals whose past brought them into his office or courtroom. As we dedicate the W. Douglas Parsons Judicial Center and hang Judge Parsons' portrait here today, I pray that you will continue to promote and safeguard the excellent standards of justice in our community that Judge Parsons worked so faithfully to ensure during his many years of faithful service as an attorney, counselor, judge, colleague, mentor, and friend. I ask that our fond memories of Judge Parsons will bring many smiles today, that our commitment to honor Judge Parsons' great legacy would bring comfort and joy to his many friends and family, and that it would be a reminder to all who pass through this place to carry forth his commitment to justice for the people of our community. In Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Amen.
This time I'll recognize the mayor of the city of Clinton, the Honorable Lou Starling.
Thank you very much. You know, it's bittersweet today because it's sweet that we're honoring a great man who deserves this great honor. It's bitter that we're honoring him at this time, and we all remember him daily and hurt daily from the bottom of our heart. I can say to you that without a doubt, W. Douglas Parsons knew me for longer than anybody in this room, including my sisters. And I have verified that today with my mother and father. I was born on 416 East Powell Street. He lived at 422 East Powell Street. Lee, my next door neighbor, there's only one house between us. And when my mother and father came home from the hospital with me, before my sisters could come out, he walked over to see what they had brought home. I am told that those who saw that said he was not impressed then. And continued to feel sorry for me throughout my life. So every time I called upon him, he would help me and say, bless his heart. What a good man with deep roots here in this city. Many of you don't know that his father, the water system in this city, was named after his father, who was a long time, very important part of this city. So to Joe Lee, I love you. This is a special day. We lived on the same street for a number of years, loved his mother and father, and looked at him as a brother that I did not have. Attorney Gilmore set a booby trap for me today because he told me to introduce the dignitaries. Do you think I'm that crazy to miss somebody in this crowd and get them mad at me? But I'm going to do it a little different today because I think it's important for everybody here to see the breadth and deepness of his friendship all across this state. So I want to first say that we're honored to have our sheriff with us, honored to have our clerk of court, we're honored to have our county commissioners, our chairman with us, and we're also honored to have a number of elected officials. And I want you to stand as I call your category because I think it's important that we see. And I know every one of you. And I know a special story about each one of you. but I want just for the group to see what we have here today. So I'm going to ask all our district and retired district court judges from all the counties, and I know we have them from a number of counties, to please stand. I want to give these folks a round of applause. We also have some city council and school board members that I'd like for them to stand as well. County commissioners from other counties. Our district attorney, former district attorney, Hudson, and now in the Superior Court. If our Superior Court judges, I know we have them from all over the state, if you would stand. This is about as good as it gets across North Carolina to show you how much that these people are appreciated. And this is Doug's brethren, and I would like to give them a round of applause. You know, we just finished the All-American City trial out in Denver. And our theory, our strategy was, it's the right thing to do. And we're here today to name this building after our friend. Everybody in here has got a special story about him. And we're here today to honor a building because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. A great man for a great tribute. So to everyone here, to his friends, his family, I see all the clerk's office, other people, I say welcome. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing the portrait, and we look forward to honoring a great leader and a great role model, and Gene, a lawyer's lawyer. Thank you again and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. This time I'd like to introduce and recognize a friend and colleague, Superior Court Judge Henry L. Stevens Ford.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. 105 years ago, over 4,000 people gathered outside of this courthouse for the dedication of a monument to memorialize the valor and sacrifice of those who had served during the American Civil War 50 years prior. Colonel Fred Olds eloquently began, "From time immemorial, it has been the custom of all civilized and enlightened people to commemorate the worthy deeds of their ancestors by appropriate memorials, perpetuating in stone and masonry such facts as may soon pass out of the memory of man. That memorial still serves as a reminder to us and future generations of the service and the love and respect of their contemporaries and future generations. As you look around this historic Sampson County courtroom, we are reminded that it has also been a long-standing tradition for worthy citizens to be honored by having their portraits grace the walls of government buildings within their communities. We gather here today under such a circumstance to commemorate the worthy deeds of and to honor our friend Judge William Douglas Parsons, to memorialize his incomparable contribution to Clinton, to Sampson County, the North Carolina Bar, the North Carolina Judicial Branch, and the state of North Carolina, and to remind us and future generations of Judge Parsons' tremendous impact on many of our lives. Many throughout this state recall with great love and respect that Judge Parsons often made that impact by assisting those in need, mentoring and teaching colleagues, or simply showing interest in the lives of everyone he met, giving back to the community one life at a time. The portraits that adorn the walls of this building help tell the rich history of Sampson County and those who have called it home. I recall my first plea in Superior Court as an assistant district attorney in Sampson County over 20 years ago. As the lawyers know, when a defendant pleads guilty in Superior Court, the district attorney has to address the court and provide a factual basis for the plea. A visiting judge was presiding, and I was as nervous as I could be. However, I had a well-rehearsed statement ready, and I soon began. And as soon as I began, the judge pointed at that second picture on the wall and interrupted me to ask, Who's in that picture? And at the time, and under the circumstances, I had absolutely no idea. Today, I can tell you that that portrait is of North Carolina Superior Court Judge Almond Alexander McCoy. Judge McCoy was from Clinton, and he was Sampson County's very first Superior Court judge, beginning in 1874. He held the military rank of colonel and had also served as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention of 1865 and 1868. Ironically, Judge Parsons held the very same seat on the North Carolina Superior Court that Judge McCoy had held over 100 years prior. The lineage of that seat traces its history back to just after the American Civil War, when judges of the North Carolina Superior Court first began being elected by the people, rather than being exclusively appointed by the governor. At the time, there were only 12 judges on the North Carolina Superior Court that traveled great distances to hold court throughout the state. The first judge to hold Judge Parsons' seat was Judge Daniel Lindsay Russell, who lived near Wilmington. At the time, Sampson, Duplin, and New Hanover counties were all a part of the same judicial district. Judge Russell served from 1868 until he was defeated in the election by Sampson County's Judge McCoy. Several years thereafter, Judge Russell again ran for elected office and became the 49th governor of the state of North Carolina. Judge McCoy died in office in 1885 and was succeeded in that seat by another Sampson County native, 31-year-old Judge Edwin T. Boykin. Despite his relatively young age, Judge Boykin had already served in the North Carolina House of Representatives and the North Carolina Senate, where he had presided as the 6th President Pro Tem of that body. Judge Boykin, Sampson County's second Superior Court judge, held that seat for 12 years until 1897. He died shortly thereafter at the age of 44. We are not sure, but we think it's possible that Judge Boykin may be the gentleman that's pictured in the portrait with the mustache right here, as that's the only one we can identify in the courtroom. After Judge Boykin vacated the seat, Sampson County would not have another resident Superior Court judge for the next 25 years. Then in 1922, Clinton attorney Henry A. Grady, whose portrait hangs in the back of the courtroom, assumed the seat. Judge Grady is remembered by his colleagues as having the wisdom of Solomon. Even after his retirement in 1938, Judge Grady continued to serve as an emergency Superior Court judge. More than 10 years after retiring, and then in his 80s, Judge Grady was recognized for holding more sessions of court during the years of 1952 and 1953 than any other judge serving the state of North Carolina. One enduring legacy to Judge Grady's tenure can still be observed behind the courtroom in the Sampson County Law Library, where the law books from his era still bear his handwritten name on the bindings. My grandfather, Judge Henry L. Stevens Jr., followed Judge Grady as the resident Superior Court judge in 1939 and held that seat for the next 24 years, until 1963, when Judge Howard Hubbard became the 4th individual from Sampson County to serve as Superior Court judge in Judge Parsons' lineage. Judge Hubbard, however, was not new to the Superior Court bench, as he had previously served as a special Superior Court judge. Judge Hubbard's portrait is yet to be hung in the Sampson County Courthouse. Perhaps that's an oversight that should be addressed. When Judge Hubbard retired in 1972, Sampson County would not have another Superior Court judge until Judge Parsons was appointed 40 years later as the 5th Superior Court judge from Sampson County. During the intervening years, that seat was held by jurists from Duplin County, to include Judge Winifred T. Wells. She was followed by Judge Russell J. Lanier Sr., then my father, Judge Henry L. Stevens III, then Russell J. Lanier Jr., who most of us here knew as Rusty. Judge Parsons, of course, followed Rusty, and then Doug was preceded in office by Sampson County's 6th Superior Court judge, Judge Albert Kirby. It has been my distinct honor to now hold the same seat on the North Carolina Superior Court bench as my grandfather, my father, and one of the men who had a tremendous impact on my professional career, Doug Parsons. As I travel throughout the state, I am constantly reminded by judges, attorneys, clerks, court reporters, probation officers, and others of the impact that Doug had on so many, many people. Without exception, everyone speaks to his preparedness, his poise, his knowledge of the law, But what strikes me the most is what was well represented by my clerk in court this week. She said that she didn't know Judge Parsons well, but that she knew he was a great man. That the first time that she worked with him, that he had asked about her family, and that they talked about her son who has autism. She said that she never saw him after that Doug didn't stop what he was doing, greet her with a smile, call her by name, and ask with genuine kindness, "How is that boy of yours doing?" She then paused and said he always remembered. Judge Parsons will also always be remembered, not only for his incomparable legal abilities and success, but for all that he did for others in need of a boost, for generously mentoring and teaching his friends and colleagues, and for simply showing interest in the lives of everyone he met. Doug truly gave back to the community one life at a time. It is my sincere hope that this fitting tribute dedicated here today to Judge Parsons will stand as a reminder to future generations of our love and admiration of a man who served with distinction his community, his state, and his fellow man. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Stevens. This time I'd like to recognize friend and colleague, District Court Judge, the Honorable William B. Sutton, Jr.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't coordinate our remarks today. We'll all say the same thing about Judge Parsons. He was just an unbelievable person. We'll start there and stipulate that. Doug would have done it. I always wanted to stipulate the facts. But let me just say I'm honored to be part of this ceremony today and greet the honored guests, judges. We have more judges in the courtroom probably than just about in history. And all the attorneys here, all the friends of Doug, everybody that's here is a friend of Doug, I think. And most especially the family who's here. I think this is a very meaningful and special occasion. And the purpose, obviously, is to unveil the portrait that's going to be hung and to dedicate the building in the memory of Doug. As I was holding court here this week, I'm looking around the courtroom, just as Henry was saying, Judge Stevens, excuse me. But I'm going to be a little informal because Judge Parsons was Judge Parsons in the courtroom, no question about it. He commanded great respect. But outside the courtroom, he said, "Call me Doug." You know, that's the way he wanted it. That's the way I like it as well. And at any rate, 20 pictures on the wall here, portraits. Great men, all of them. There is no question, I looked up into Sampson County history book because I think history is involved. What we're doing today is a historic occasion. We've got just really good attorneys. The one I knew is right there, Maurice Hall, Ross's law. We've got judges, all sorts of judges, as Judge Stevens just pointed out. We've got district attorneys, Walker Britt, who I knew. We've got a federal judge for this century. Most of these people on the walls are from the 18th or 19th century, not 1800s. We have one North Carolina Supreme Court justice. We have a governor. We have state representatives, state senators. We have congressmen. We have a United States senator and a United States vice president. It's part of Sampson County Bar history. That's quite a distinguished group. But I don't think there is any question in anybody's mind that Doug Parsons belongs in that distinguished group. Anybody who practiced law with him, who appeared before him as a judge, or knew him as a person, whether you saw him in the courtroom or not, knows that he belongs here. Furthermore, not only will his portrait be hung today, the building next door, which has been called the Courthouse Extension, a lot of people call it the old First Citizens Building. It's always confusing to folks. We've got 3 courthouse facilities here in Sampson County. They're not joined. the annex down the street, the main courtroom here that we're in, and the extension. Now that's going to be the W. Douglas Parsons Judicial Center. From now, as long as that building stands, it's going to be named that. And I think that is appropriate. Because Mayor Starling just said it's the right thing to do. I've always thought that, and I appreciate some people that made that happen. I'm going to tell you about that. The Sampson County Bar met sometime in early 2018 and passed by unanimous resolution a resolution to name that building after Doug Parsons. It was presented to the county commission. They studied it and should have, because it was opening. It's an unprecedented move, actually, is what I understand, to do this. And there was no ordinance for the county on naming of buildings. They passed an ordinance as a result of this. And Doug Parsons was the first person in Sampson County history, as far as a judicial building at least, to have a building named in his memory and honor. And I appreciate all the members of the Sampson County Bar who knew Doug, were friends of Doug, and certainly loved Doug, just like everyone here did. And I appreciate the county commissioners who unanimously passed that resolution or ordinance adopting the building in the memory of Doug. So, seeing that, I had a resolution that was read at the 4th Judicial District Bar by my good friend Ross Holland. I told him I'd give him credit for this, because this is Ross's words. But it tells you why there's no question why Doug Parsons belongs his portrait on the wall and his name on the building. Whereas Doug Parsons was born on October 7, 1950, the son of Seth and Irma Parsons. Whereas Doug was married to Roxanne Parsons, had one son, Michael, who's an architect in Raleigh, and one daughter, Rachel, who is a special needs teacher in Bevan, will soon be marrying, I think, within the next couple of weeks. And was the grandfather of William Cole Parsons. Whereas Doug graduated from Clinton, North Carolina Public School System, Clinton High School, then received his bachelor's degree at UNC Chapel Hill in 1972. He then attended Wake Forest Law School, graduating in 75, and was admitted to the State Bar of North Carolina in 1975. Whereas Doug Parsons was an assistant district attorney for the 4th Judicial District from 1975 through 1978, assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina in Raleigh from 78 through 79, admitted to practice in the North Carolina courts, United States District Court, Eastern District Court of North Carolina, United States District Court, Middle District, and Western District of North Carolina, United States Circuit Court of Appeals, 4th Circuit, and the United States Supreme Court. And whereas Doug Parsons was a fellow in the American College of Trial Lawyers, was selected best lawyer in America, in best lawyers group in America in 2013, North Carolina Legal Elite more than once, North Carolina Business Magazine lawyer, top North Carolina super lawyer, and top 100 attorneys in North Carolina. And I think those are all, most lawyers and judges will tell you, those are well-deserved honors. Appropriate. Whereas Doug Parsons was a lecturer and presented manuscripts on criminal law, trial of criminal cases in North Carolina, in the North Carolina Academy of Trial Lawyers, Wake Forest School of Law, UNC School of Law, North Carolina Bar Association, Eastern District Federal Defenders Conference, North Carolina Public Defenders Conference, and the North Carolina District Attorneys Conference. Whereas, it's long because this is the life Doug had. He had a lot of things. Whereas Doug Parsons was appointed by the Lieutenant Governor to the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission, was appointed by the Governor to the North Carolina Courts Commission, was President of Sampson County Bar, President of the 4th Judicial District Bar, and was appointed by the North Carolina State Bar to the Criminal Justice Section Council, was appointed to the North Carolina State Bar Criminal Law Specialization Committee, was chairman of that committee from 1995 through 1999, was on the North Carolina Academy of Trial Lawyers Board of Governors, was a legislative chair of the criminal law section and vice president of the legislation for that organization, was board certified in state criminal law and federal criminal law, and the North Carolina State Board of Legal Specialization. Doug Parsons was a former board of director for the Clinton Area Foundation of Education, board of trustees at Sampson Community College, board of directors at Sampson Community College Foundation, commissioner of the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, was a lifelong member of First United Methodist Church in Clinton, where he served as finance chairman, chairman of the board of trustees, and was an adult Sunday school teacher. I was fortunate enough to have Doug as my Sunday school teacher. Whereas Doug was officially appointed by Governor Beverly Perdue in March of 2012 to replace retiring Superior Court Judge Russell Lanier, sworn in June of 2012 as resident Superior Court Judge for the 4th District, 4A District at that time, just Jones, Duplin, and Sampson. The district is now encompassed Onslow as well. He held that position until his death. At the time of his death, he was a member of the North Carolina Judicial Standards Commission. That's the commission that monitors the conduct of all judges, and was on the UNC Board of Visitors. He loved to spend time with his family, his children, his grandchild. He loved to hunt and fish. He was an outstanding criminal law attorney and an outstanding judge for the state of North Carolina. This was read at the annual meeting of the 4th Judicial District Bar, and I don't think we have to say any more. And with that being said, I'm going to now call on again Clark Wood, Chairman of the Sampson Board of Commissioners, for some words.
Thank you, Judge Sutton. Clearly, I am honored and humbled to be a part of this proceeding. I would like to say that the mayor did an excellent job staying out of missing an official trap. My hat's off to you, naming of the official. But I can't stand here before you and not recognize my fellow commissioners, because without their support and without their guidance and without their counsel, this couldn't have happened. And with us today is Vice Chair Sue Lee. Ms. Lee, please stand. Commissioner Gerald Kivett. And unfortunately, Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Godwin are unable to attend. But the 4 of my fellow commissioners counsel me, along with Judge Sutton, that this was the right thing. Now, I'm definitely the least worthy person in this building to speak about Judge Parson. And I suspect that I probably am the least known to Judge Parson. But what I will tell you is that we all are building a legacy. And from what times I have been in Judge Parsons' presence and what times I've been in Doug Parsons' presence, he built a legacy, one conversation at a time, one relationship at a time. And that, above all the accolades that you heard Judge Stevens and Judge Sutton read, that will be remembered long after that picture's hung on the wall. And this gold cartridge. That's what I knew of Doug Parson. And that's what I'm here to honor today. And I appreciate each one of y'all's attendance. And it is by far my honor to call Doug Parson a counselor. And I thank y'all for it.
I'd like to recognize and introduce Distinguished Attorney John P. O'Hare.
Thank you, Judge Henry. I met him in 1969. He's a skinny kid from New Jersey. But he was a smart guy because he got into Carolina. Judge Henry, Judge Stevens, Judge Sutton, that jury box full of judges over there, honored dignitaries and honored guests and friends. After listening to Lou Starling and Henry Stevens and Billy Sutton, I got nothing to say. I'm going home. This really is a nostalgic occasion for all of us. A little more than 2 years ago, Doug Parsons died suddenly. He was our friend, and we miss him. So today we are gathered here together to honor Doug's legacy by celebrating the naming of, and I thought it was a judicial annex, but the judicial extension as the W. Douglas Parsons Judicial Extension, and by unveiling his portrait that will eventually hang in that complex. Doug and I were licensed to practice law at the same time, 1975. And when I reach back 44 years and think of the trials I was in, the people I met, the lawyers I met, those memories come back to me in bits and scraps. And sometimes recounting the past gets to be a little bit disjointed. But when I think of Doug Parsons, I remember everything. In 1978, I was an assistant district attorney in Johnston County, and I was tasked with prosecuting a fellow by the name of Norris Taylor for the crime of first-degree murder. While Taylor was awaiting trial in the Johnston County Jail, he escaped and went on what can best be described as a crime spree. And while on that crime spree, he kidnapped a woman down in eastern North Carolina, assaulted her, and took her into Virginia. And Doug Parsons was an assistant United States attorney, and he indicted Taylor in federal court for kidnapping. And while on that crime spree, Taylor went to Fayetteville and murdered a woman. And he was appointed a young lawyer, public defender by the name of Mary Ann Talley, who's now Superior Court Judge Mary Ann Talley. And that's how I met Doug Parsons, and that's how I knew Judge Talley. And we became friends. Now, when I first started practicing law, I would go to court and watch the older, experienced lawyers try cases. And one question they would routinely ask witnesses: do you know the character and reputation of honesty or truthfulness for a certain witness or a certain person? And I started thinking about that, character and reputation. But character is the very essence of a person. It is who the person is. If you're in this courtroom today, or you're anywhere else in the world, your character is always the same. Now, reputation is something different. When you live in a community, when you come to work and associate with people, when people begin to know you, they develop an opinion as to your reputation. Now, the genesis of the, I tell you all this for a reason because I'm going to double back in a minute and talk about it. But the genesis for this portrait we're going to see here today started with my wife wanting to have one of our family members painted. So she went in search of a portrait artist, and purely by accident and good luck, she met Vicki McKinney, the artist who's with us here today. Now, Miss McKinney had moved from Virginia to North Carolina because her husband's an architect and taking a job in Raleigh. But when she came to North Carolina, she had formerly been the artist in Virginia who was commissioned to paint the official judicial portraits of the trial judges and the Supreme Court justice there. And it was during this portrait session with our family member that I learned the difference between a photograph and a portrait. First of all, portraits are a lot more expensive than photographs. But Ms. McKinney explained to me that when she paints a person, she just doesn't capture an image of a person in a point in time. but rather captures the character of an individual. Now, when I use the word character, I'm talking about the core values of an individual. And those core values are not necessarily Doug Parsons alone. When you see this photograph or this painting later on, you'll see his core values. But the core values are necessary for a lawyer to become a great judge. The first one is courage. The Greek historian Thucydides observed that the secret of happiness is freedom. The secret of freedom is courage. And before you become a judge, you are first and foremost a lawyer. The lawyer must zealously and vigorously represent his clients and defend their rights and their freedoms and advocate their cause. But often this requires tremendous courage. Now, I told you that Mary Ann Talley was a public defender and she was appointed to represent Morris Taylor. Remember, this was 1978, and there were very few female trial lawyers. There were, though, some really cantankerous district attorneys in southeastern North Carolina. And that's who Mary Ann appeared before. She was prosecuting she was defending Norris Taylor. I was prosecuting him. So I thought that I would see how Mary Ann was defending him so I could get ahead of the curve in my case. Now, I will tell you that these old cantankerous district attorneys thought that they could get the better of Mary Ann Talley and take advantage of her because of her youth and her gender. That was not true. She stood toe-to-toe with those boys and gave as good as she got. And I actually followed you in your proceedings. I read your filings, and I realized that Mary Ann Talley had great courage, and she inspired me and Doug. Doug had the courage to make correct judicial decisions based upon the Constitution and the law. The courage to resist outside influences and pressure. The courage to resist making politically popular decisions. Doug had the courage to make decisions in accordance with the Constitution and the law and to do what he knew was right. And Doug had an abiding faith and a firm belief in the due process of law, which includes the presumption of innocence in criminal cases. The concept of due process of law embodies notice and an opportunity for an individual to be heard in a fair, impartial, and neutral tribunal, and entitles a person to an unbiased decision based upon the law. Doug believed in equality. The Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal, and in today's world we know that that means all people are created equal. If you ever have an opportunity to go to the United States Supreme Court, on that building are engraved these words: equal justice under law. Doug believed that all people were created equally, and they should be treated equally, and they should have equal rights and opportunities, and that absolutely no one should be discriminated against because of their race, sex, religion, national origin, or age. And if any of you ever appeared in Doug Parsons' courtroom, you heard him say this: "This is not my courtroom. This is the people's courtroom." And he treated all the people in his courtroom, all the litigants, as equal. Doug, you know, was a tenacious lawyer, a vigorous advocate, and he firmly believed in the concept of the right to counsel. He believed vigorously that a person should have the right to a lawyer no matter how unpopular the individual may be or how unpopular their cause. And he recognized that every person was entitled to competent and zealous legal representation. And when Doug was a judge, he demanded that the lawyers for both sides in cases who appeared before him be well prepared and represent their clients zealously and competently. Free speech. He was a firm believer that every person had the right to be heard, and speech should never be restrained, suppressed, discouraged, or prohibited because it was unpopular or contrary to prevailing public opinion. Respect. Respect for those who administer the law, respect for those who enforce the law, respect for his fellow judges who are called upon to interpret the law and apply the law fairly and impartially to the facts of any given case. Doug respected the lawyers and their clients who appeared before him. And as you all know, Doug was always honest and truthful in his dealings with everyone. I was in the 8th grade and I vividly remember the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And after his death, two of his top aides, Kenny O'Donnell and Dave Powers, wrote a book about their memories of JFK, and it was titled, "Johnny, We Hardly Knew Ye." That title came from an Irish folk song. Well, unlike the title of that book, we knew Doug Parsons, and we knew him well, and we knew his character and his core values, and it was that character that made Doug Parsons an unforgettable man and a great judge. I look around this courtroom today, and I see so many judges, lawyers, Doug's friends, and we really appreciate you being here today. Now, I know you judges talk about lawyers, and the lawyers talk about the judges. And since Doug was a judge and I was a lawyer, we talked about everybody. So I can assure all of you that Doug treasured his friends and the professional friendship that he had with his fellow lawyers and judicial colleagues. And I also can tell you that every one of you inspired Doug Parsons to be the best person, lawyer, and judge that he could possibly be. And I think Doug Parsons, in return, inspired us. So on behalf of Roxanne and the Parsons family, I want to thank the Sampson County Commissioners for naming the Judicial Extension in honor of Doug Parsons and for authorizing the hanging of his portrait that we're about to unveil. I want to thank all the lawyers and friends and law enforcement officers who are present here today. And I especially want to thank Roscoe Ross Hopper. You know, in the past 44 years, I've been called upon many times to raise money for various causes. And that's a daunting task and something you really don't want to do. When it came to this portrait, I made one phone call. Ross and I had discussed about this portrait, and I called him. I said, "Can you raise money to pay for this thing in Sampson County?" He said, "Don't worry about it. When you're ready, call me. I'll have the check." And time went by, and finally the portrait was completed. I called Ross, and true to his word, that was on a Wednesday. Friday at lunch, he was in my office with Robert Gilmore, and they had the check for the portrait. So any of the lawyers or people who contributed to that, thank you very much. Also here today, I need to thank Charlie Smith. Charlie was Doug Parsons' longtime paralegal and judicial assistant when he served as a judge, and she helped coordinate this event today. And Charlie, thank you. Now, when you see this portrait in a few minutes, you will see that it captures Doug's kindness, his sharp intellect, his wry wit, his thoughtfulness that he displayed as a husband, a father, a lawyer, and judge. And you know what is really remarkable about this portrait? The artist never met Doug Parsons. She never talked with Doug Parsons. Doug Parsons never came to her studio for a sitting. This portrait was done by an artist using photographs, newspaper pictures, and Michael Parsons, Roxanne, the family met with the artist to describe Doug. And when you see this portrait, you'll be amazed how it captures it. Now, you know the Scottish poet Bobby Burns once wrote, "The best laid plans of mice and men gang after glee." That means there's always a glitch in a project. Well, there was a glitch in this project. When the portrait was first done, I got a photograph of it, and I called Roxanne to compliment, "Wow, this is a great portrait, Roxanne." She said, "We got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "Now don't get me wrong, Doug would love this portrait." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, because Vicki McKinney gave him more hair and death than you." She insisted on accuracy, so she called Vicki, and sure enough, a large swath of Doug disappeared. Sorry, Doug. I would like Vicki McKinney to step forward by portrait. This is the artist, ladies and gentlemen. John Kennedy said, "Life is never easy. There is work to be done and obligations to be met. Obligations to the truth, to justice, and to liberty." Doug Parsons worked, and he worked hard. And he fulfilled those obligations. So the naming of the Judicial Building in honor of Doug Parsons and this portrait is our way of saying thank you to the Parsons family for Doug's service to the community, his commitment to the legal profession, and our system of justice. Roxanne, Michael, Jolie, Rachel, please come up here. With the artist's permission, I would ask Roxanne to please unveil. Looks just like him, doesn't it? Thank you for permitting me to speak with you, and thank you all for coming. Thank you, Jack.
If I may give an observation. Doug represented all the best that Sampson County had to offer. The legal profession, judiciary, and the state of North Carolina. Roxanne, Rachel, and Michael, and the Parsons family, he was so much to be proud of. His community also had so much to be proud of. Personally and professionally, he's been missed. He'll continue to be missed for a long time to come. The Parsons family, we wish all of you the best in the years to come. God bless you all. Sheriff's recess court.
All rise. Yes, oh yes, oh yes. This honorable special session of Superior Court for the County of Sampson now stands adjourned. Sine die. God save the state and this honorable court. You are dismissed.
But it did, he didn't go to the fire.
I seen pictures from that when y'all were and all that, and all the stuff, and I was all
There you go.